Good afternoon, boys and girls, and all the ships at sea. This is your host for SMG's Are We Here Yet podcast, Scott M. Graves, with a hearty good afternoon. It is not the usual evening time because right now we are recording a special feature. Episode 1, the inaugural episode of this podcast, was with one of our incubator candidates. The name of the company, Bulkhead Blanket, and the owner of that company, Mr. Tom Derrick, and he is our guest 1 year later to kind of talk about where his entrepreneurial endeavor is at. Mr. Bulkhead Blanket, Tom, how are you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm really, really glad to have you back on the Are We Here Yet podcast a year later.
I'm glad to be back.
So we'll cut to the chase, right? You and I have continued to work together on this entrepreneurial endeavor of yours through thick and thin and all kinds of changes over the last year. When we started this, we were not in the midst of the zombie apocalypse, and we had all kinds of other stuff happen too. But first, tell everybody listening what Bulkhead Blanket is.
All right. Well, Bulkhead Blanket is an insulated protective cover for an outside cellar door, also known as a bulkhead. Common problems with a bulkhead is it lets draft in, it rusts, and it gets damaged from the weather, and it can be kind of an eyesore. So this kind of takes care of a lot of those issues. Yeah. If you're not too worried about the losing draft, it still protects it from rain, rust. It's less maintenance. You don't have to paint your bulkhead because of the constant chipping of the paint and rusting and all that stuff. And in all reality, it prevents you hopefully from having to replace the entire bulkhead, which costs a lot of money. So it's a preventative measure as well as efficiency and just looks and appearance.
There's helping you as a mentor on your project in the incubator. This is one of these products and businesses that, like, unless you had come to me and we were working on this thing, there's just all these things you'd never know that you didn't know. You know what I mean? As a for instance, like bulkheads, I didn't realize how expensive they were to replace. And we were talking thousands of dollars in most cases. I wouldn't have even thought of this product until you had brought this product to our attention. And yet when you then start to think about the details of why you would do, why you would make these, why somebody in the marketplace would want them, you go, it's all kinds of compelling reasons for that. You know what I mean? That's what's been interesting about it. It is, and I want you to talk to this, and it's pretty much made out of fairly mundane materials. It's innovative in and of itself, but it's bringing together a lot of things that aren't so hard to find.
Yeah, it is kind of funny because the materials, like you said, they're not, outer space minerals or anything. It's rather common material. You can, everybody's probably seen most of them, honestly. And it's just a certain design that it has, though, that it's what makes it unique, and just what it's designed for, so it's to what you said earlier, most people don't think of their bulkhead and how much it costs. And I've discussed this with homeowners, and you can even kind of see it in them. They kind of take a double step and they're kind of like, oh, you're right, I didn't think of that. Or I've met people that said, oh, I just replaced my bulkhead a couple of years ago. It cost me $2,000, or, hey, my sister just replaced her bulkhead. It costs a bunch of money. Or someone has to get a hole welded, and all sorts of just nonsense like that, which it just costs money and it's a pain. And a lot of people don't realize they have these issues until it's there and their bulkhead's leaking into their basement, or it's too rusty to save, or whatever have you. You know what I mean? So it's definitely interesting in that aspect.
We've besides the preservation of the bulkhead, which in and of itself is a real issue monetarily, and the other side of it, of course, is the general it's not that people are losing R value, but that there isn't a lot of R value around a bulkhead, and particularly as it ages and as the infrastructure around it ages, becomes a lot draftier, and that basement door becomes one of the key areas where the house is letting in a lot of draft.
Yes.
I have to tell you, one of the biggest challenges that we had with this and I'd like you to speak to this a little bit, was the issue of RValue and being able to measure it, which we thought in the beginning was going to be super easy.
Yeah.
It's a textile, right? Everyone knows how to measure the RValue of a textile, right?
Yeah, it turns out not so much, but
even the textile experts. Well, yeah, but we can't measure that really.
I know that was a bit of a surprise. I thought an RValue test was rather common. I didn't think in 100 years this would be a hard thing to figure out in terms of just getting an actual test done.
Right.
But yeah, that was one of the surprising hurdles that I didn't think of was going to be an issue. But I guess that's just being an entrepreneur. It's the unexpected, and something you assume is going to be not that big of a deal ends up being one of the bigger deals, and it's like, oh, okay.
What were some of the other things that you felt over time, whether it be part of the mentorship or for the product itself? What are some of the challenges that you found that you experienced over the last year?
Well, we had COVID, but I think
yeah.
it's
the
just
elephant in the room.
Yeah, but it's really just talking to people. It's you don't know what to expect from people, and that can be kind of frustrating. Not frustrating, but it can be kind of give people anxiety when they're trying to cold call and talk to certain people, and that can be kind of a new experience and can be kind of nerve-wracking, but it's just something you get used to. Finding suppliers that could sell to me, a little guy, because I'm not a big business. So they're finding a supplier that will sell me things without requiring a huge minimum on certain products. That was actually kind of a surprise. And obviously, like I said, COVID disrupted supply chains as well. So, but really, I mean, it's nothing really. I expected this not to be easy in the beginning, because it's just, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you can't expect it to be easy. It's nothing you do is going to be easy.
That's right.
So I did expect it to be difficult. I guess there were just certain things that surprised me. But again, I mean, I don't expect this to be easy.
No, nothing worth doing is ever easy, right?
Exactly.
Something a lot. Yeah. But the fruits of your labor when it comes in, and makes it worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, talk a little bit about the story. You have a unique story about how you came by this product and how you went through a bit of a journey to then decide that this was going to be, something that you wanted to do. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, well, obviously it was my father's idea. I didn't really know about it for a little while. He had spent quite a few years developing it. I had no clue. Then we discussed it. I had even moved the thing, like I said, on his house. I didn't even realize and then he said one day he made it, and I was very surprised. So after he had, me and him planned on working on it together and all that, and once he had passed, we were stuck with the debt of everything else, and it wasn't practical at the time. And I always thought,
and just to be sure, just to add some context, your father owned his own business, but he was also tinkering with things like the Bulkhead blanket, and then he unfortunately passed away.
Yeah, he was actually a body man. He did auto body most of his life. He had built a garage. He had redone a whole garage a few years prior for auto body with like radiant heat in the floor, just for auto body, nothing to do with the Bulkhead blanket at all. Yeah. And then he just, one day, I think he just woke up and said, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna start making them. And I feel like I've got all my kinks worked out. And it was also at a time too when the economy wasn't necessarily the greatest. And me and him had a discussion. He just said, look, the way the economy is right now, I'm kind of forced to do this. So he actually changed his answering machine and everything. He didn't even advertise himself as a body man anymore. He said, this is Tom Derrick, and he called it the Bulkhead Boot Company. So he was that close. He had little labels made out and everything. So when he passed, the timing wasn't the greatest, obviously, never is, but it was the timing was just awful, because he had borrowed against the garage, because he didn't owe a mortgage on it. So he had actually borrowed against the garage to start.
Yeah, that's right. He went all in on this.
Yeah, he went all in on it. So and that was like 3 or 4 months before he had passed. So when we got the garage, we were stuck with the debt, and I had no clue about why he used certain materials. We never got to that discussion at all, why he used certain materials, how he came up with this and that. That never even came up in discussion. So like that's why me and you have been having to try and reverse engineer it and have to talk to people in the industry, and we realize why he used what he did.
Yeah, and you know what's been interesting about that for me, I haven't shared this with you before, but as we've done some of this reverse engineering, it's like you're getting to know this guy a little bit. 4 simple, design elements, but each one of them, it turns out, oh, okay, that's addressing the problem of moisture and wicking it away. This thing is addressing keeping the heat in. This one's, from the way he stitched it to the materials and all that other stuff, it starts to all make perfect sense. And it even makes you say, man, why couldn't we just have figured it out? You know what I mean? I mean, we're trying to do it scientifically, and have it be proven out, but he knew exactly what he was doing, not that we didn't, but it's like, we're getting to know him a little bit through reverse engineering this product. Yeah.
It is cool when you realize why he did what he did, in terms of weighing the materials and everything like that, and what his mindset was. And again, the thing too is in terms of moisture and all that, he's a body man. He knows all about how you can't have moisture with paint and this and that, because he knows, he knows. So that's why when I'm looking at the cover, I'm like, in these materials, I'm like, he must have known this works. Like I just couldn't see him taking a $30,000 loan out against this garage to make these things if it wasn't going to work, if he wasn't 100% sure of it. So it was very cool to like you said, reverse engineer it and go, oh wow, okay, common materials, but this is why he did it. And in a way, it doesn't surprise me. He was always a very clever guy, and I'm not even just being biased because he's my dad. He's always been very clever. So I kind of chuckled when I realized why he did, and I'm like, all right, that he would totally do that because he's clever, and I'm sure he talked to the right people and got a second opinions and whatnot. But like you said, it was kind of cool. You got kind of an idea what his mindset was when he made it.
Yep, it's a cool thing. So where do we go from here now? You're a year in. Talk to us a little bit about the different things that you've been learning, maybe as part of, being a part of the incubator experience. We've been doing this remotely, so it's been really strange. And what do you lay out for our listeners, what the next year looks like?
Well, for the next year, really, it's just going to be getting a couple more prototypes made. I'm gonna run some experience on a couple actual houses, have actual people buy them. I'll put them on their house. We'll track everything and, do some experience in terms of seeing how it blocks the draft and have the, pay attention to temperatures and heating bills and whatnot. But really just getting a lot of just fine tuning it and make sure we get everything right. And that's going to be the goal of the next year, is just making sure this thing is ready to get going. And we're working with the workshop, and hopefully we'll be making quite a few of these by the end of the year. That's the plan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, you've had some early interest, and we've got the space that'll be opening up later on this year at the workshop in Leicester, Massachusetts. So you'll have your first shared industrial space and the equipment there necessary to ramp this thing up. There has been a decent amount of interest. It turns out people have bulkheads. What is it? What is the number? It's like something in a few millions, right, across the northern tier of the United States of these bulkheads everywhere.
It was around, well, they said the market, according to market analysis that I had done, it was around 26 million homes had full or partial basements.
Okay. And a portion of them have some kind of portion, because it turns out there's never been a comprehensive survey of bulkheads done, but there's some large portion that have bulkheads.
Yeah, they didn't get into specifics of how many were bulkheads, but in all reality, even if it's just a quarter of 26 million, we're still talking, 6-7 million, 6.5 million bulkheads.
Right.
So there's a very good potential for market, and I think that if all goes well, I think there's a very good possibility that this could have the market. This could own the market. So that's the goal.
Well,
Because
you've got the individual residential, but then you also have ideas about institutional clients. Talk about that a little bit, and just the importance of having a mix. I think one of the strengths of your business model is the idea that you can have individual retail clients, but then there's also the opportunity for institutional clients.
Yeah, I would definitely like to work. That is definitely a cool part about it. Is I'd like to work with businesses that are involved in the industry, whether it be an actual developer, a construction crew, like a home remodeling. You can sell this. There's a few different outlets that could sell this product in terms of businesses. Because you have heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. That's something they could possibly do. Just insulation itself, even
As an
just
add-on, you're talking about as an add-on.
As an add-on, and then there's even bigger stores. Like if I wanted to potentially sell this at a Home Depot or a Lowe's, if the idea gets big enough, gets enough traction.
Well, and then you've got the energy efficiency programs that states offer, especially here, above the snow belt in the United States, for making older homes more energy efficient, where they require. So in other words, those programs would be buying them or subsidizing them and putting them on. I think there's strength to that,
Yeah, I think that's definitely one route that we have discussed, and one my father discussed also. He was a big thing of getting Mass Save involved with it, because he also was, I've seen them work. I've seen what they do, and I think that I've seen some, this would definitely qualify this product, if we can prove just through a test that it insulates. And I think that would be part of their program, and I think they would allow people to buy it and get it subsidized through the state. And that's definitely a big one on the list in terms of what I want to do.
Right.
Because it's just and it just gives it it's reputable too. If Mass Save and all these other programs say, hey, this is a legit product and it works, it'll make it better. It'll just be better overall.
Right. Very cool. Well, listen, I'm glad that you're part of the incubator, and I'm glad that we've both stuck through this, through a pandemic, a global health crisis, a change in venue.
Yeah.
All these kinds of things. But here we are. And it's really great checking in with you a year later and letting all our listeners know, that you're still with it, and carrying on this legacy with your dad on top of it. And, sometime very soon, you're going to be the owner of a manufacturing outfit. And who knows what other kind of innovations that you can come up with.
Yeah, we'll be looking at other ways to utilize this material, this setup, and it won't just hopefully be bulkhead covers. We'll definitely look to expand, because I don't plan on stopping if this takes off. So
great. Well, Tom Derrick, owner of Bulkhead Blanket, here for an SMG's Are We Here Yet podcast special. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show.
I appreciate it, Scott. Thanks for having me.
And thank you. Thank you to our listeners. And you'll be able to find this and all our episodes at smgravesassociates.com/podcast. Have a great afternoon.